The first piece of advice, don't buy land unless it's entitled.
What's the difference between using like a PE firm or outside company versus the local banks?
So how would you kind of simplify it for people to, I suppose, to understand the economics of it?
First off, you got to look at who's the main investors in the developments. It's not outside investors, it's the banks.
What do you think is going to shift that area and change it?
Local banks are a gold mine for you. Build relationships with them and you'll be golden.
We're building massive businesses. We've been obviously in this country, largest transfers of wealth. Baby boomers just coming of age. If you buy a business and you have
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the KB podcast. My name is Kylie Brown. Today, I have with me Gio Oliva. Again, he was with me last week, so welcome back, Gio. How's your day going?
Yeah, really good, thank you.
Good to hear.
Not yet got to the gym, but there's still time, so it's early.
Yeah, no. So I usually, if I don't go at 5 a.m., I'm pretty much done for the day. So my days get too busy. So I try to make it first thing in the morning, but if that doesn't happen, it's super hard to squeeze that in.
Yeah, I certainly feel the difference if I don't. I'll be honest. I like to get it done early, with work and kids, and life gets in the way. It's easy to skip it.
Yep, no amen to that. So today I think we got a great subject. So today we're going to be going over the economics of residential development, which I'm obviously well versed in. I think you know quite a bit about. It's a great subject for a lot of people that are trying to learn more about our business, but also what are they looking to do and what are they trying to understand as an investor if they're investing with us as well. So how's your day going outside of not training this morning? Everything else good?
Everything's good. Full day stacked after this. No complaints. It's nice to be wanted. So we'll drive through the day. And I'm glad we're going to talk about this topic specifically, because I think when we talk to a lot of people, if they haven't got experience in it, whether it's from an investment standpoint or even haven't been on a construction site, right? Some of these things can be hard to understand. I was quite lucky, actually. I grew up in construction. My whole family are in construction in the UK: plumbers, painters, carpenters, electricians. So from the age of 12, I'm not sure it's legal, but from the age of 12, I was working weekends, as the apprentice. And then I left school at 16 and went to college and did an apprenticeship in plumbing and heating. So we were doing all new builds, really. The majority of our stuff was new builds. So from, the raw land, once it was entitled and we started a construction site, we were doing all of that, the first fix, second fix. And when you see that life cycle, it, from raw dirt to the finished product, it's a beautiful thing, and you get to learn it and understand how everybody's got to work together, see the project manager, see all the different levels and what it takes to bring it together. So there's a lot to unpack within that. Obviously, not everybody has the ability and they haven't seen that, so it can be hard to understand. So how would you kind of simplify it for people to, I suppose, to understand the economics of it?
Well, no, first off, that's cool. So you started in this when you're 16 years old?
Yeah, well, yeah, in the UK, we get to leave school at 16. So or you go on to,
yeah, well, definitely work in the US.
Well, yeah, you can either go to basically another 2 years in your school. That would get you into college, right? Those 2 years. Or if you're doing a trade, you can go at 16 into college, specific college, and you're working 1 day a week at college, and the other 4 days you're going to apprenticeship with a firm would have to take you on. And I had a plumbing firm, or my uncle worked for a plumbing firm who had all the contracts for like Wimpy Homes. Actually, we got a KB Homes in the UK. I don't think it's anything to do with guys over here. But,
yeah. So is that a family business then?
Say that again.
Was that a family business?
Yeah, they were the subcontractors. They worked for the major plumbing company that had a lot of contracts with the builders specifically, right?
Yeah, no, cool. I didn't know your family was into that, so it's cool, very cool.
Yeah, my dad's a painter and decorator, so he'd go in and do the painting and decorating.
Yeah. So what was your main question though? How do people need to see the economics of residential development? What was your main question there?
Obviously, for somebody that doesn't understand the life cycle, I think people hear the word development and obviously it can sound risky to a lot of people. And I think that just not knowing it can give people a bit of fear. And once you do understand, I suppose, the steps and the stages, and then obviously we operate in a very niche part of it and an insulated part of it. And I think just paint that picture for them to kind of understand the full life cycle and then where we sit, perhaps that might be a good place to start.
Gotcha. Well, so first off, you got to look at who's the main investors in the developments. It's not outside investors, it's the banks, correct? Mm-hmm. So what do the banks look at, when they're looking at a development? First off, location. Okay, location's huge. Do they know the market? So if they're not in the market, That's a hard bank to work with. Obviously, you want to find someone that's most likely local or more like a PE firm where they're willing to take that risk as long as they know a little bit about the market. But having a local bank helps out tremendously. That's crucial to build those relationships. If you want to do any kind of development, especially at a scale, I got great relationships, I'll throw them out there a little bit, but Lendale Bank is one of the best banks I've utilized here locally in St. Louis, and even Citizens Bank of the Midwest down in Rolla, just excellent banks to work with. But they're the biggest investors. So what are they looking at? What are the key factors they're looking at? So location is huge. What kind of density is going there? What are we trying to do there? So if it's residential, obviously we're trying to do, for us, it's more single family related. It's not, multifamily, condos, apartments, anything like that. So we're trying to look for single family lots. And don't get me wrong, it gets to be a little bit of not necessarily multifamily, but like connected duplexes, villas, and townhomes. So that type of product sells differently. Just depends where you're located at. So the banks are going to be looking at all those different stats. What kind of population growth is going in there? And what's our absorption rate? So when we look at that stuff, especially here in Missouri, it's always very consistent. Some of our other markets like Walton County, North Florida, tremendously different, market. And it just depends where you're at. It's the same anywhere. I'm sure you're out in California, correct?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I'm in California.
And which area is it again? Sacramento?
Los Angeles, Pasadena specifically, but LA, yeah.
So even Pasadena. So within 5 miles of yourself, Pasadena, you have certain areas that are expanding tremendously and other areas that, maybe not 5 miles, but give it within 15, 20 miles.
Yeah, you gotta go a little further
It-
east.
Yep, a little
Okay.
bit farther. And you have other areas that are not selling for nowhere near as much. So what is that land selling for? What's, typical values, and does it make sense for us to build there? So when it comes to development, I think it's one of the lowest risk once it's a completed product, obviously. Where all the risk comes in, and this is where a lot of the builders, I think they shoot themselves in the foot. They won't take that little bit of risk if they don't understand the market, is on the horizontal development. And I think if you don't control your pipeline, then there's no way to, really expand out to where you want to be. So if you want to develop 1,000 homes a year, that's impossible unless you're controlling your pipeline, which starts at the economic level of horizontal development.
Right, got it.
But horizontal is where I consider the most risk, and that's where banks are trying to limit their risk at, is horizontal. So that's why if you go buy land and you just buy land, it's usually they only loan out 65%. But there's caveats on how you can get them to loan out a higher LTC, LTV, but that's by incorporating a slight bit of the vertical aspect into that as well. Even if you don't have to do much of it, say we sell 95% of a project off to like Fisher Homes or Kelvy or Lombardo, whoever, we could finance up to, give or take 90, 95% of that project, the total cost with a local bank. But we have to perform part of the vertical. If we don't perform part of the vertical, we're only doing horizontal, our LTC is going to be much lower. We can get PE firms to go up to 80, 84%, but it's just not quite as common.
Remember the question I wanted to ask from a perspective of, say somebody's doing some analysis on the sold homes, new build I'm talking about, because actually something I try to do a dive for one of my clients on, and how do you guys go about getting data for new builds and how they're selling, what sort of inventory is coming on the market? Because it seemed to be the local MLSs don't typically have it, from what I had in a couple of markets I looked at. Have you found that? Or
Yeah, absolutely. So like companies like Lombardo, and I'm just putting them out because they're local. Great company. I think they build an amazing product. So props to them and everybody on their team. They don't record any of the sales. So you have to have title companies do deep dives. But the problem with that is it's not always showing you all the options they added to that house, all the other features that are added in. You could look it up and say, okay, this is what the, subdivision looks like, and these should be selling for 500,000. But when you find the total sales price, they end up selling for an average of 780,000. Well, how was that changed? Most times it's options. So you're missing that key point. Yeah, you can figure out what the average sales price is, but if they're not recording it on the MLS, it is super hard to track.
yeah,
So
because you've got to get more granular, right, when you're really underwriting these deals in terms of the profitability, and that was kind of the thing that we wanted to understand for this guy. Like, what sort of inventory is coming on line, where will it sit in the market, how many days on market it's going to sit, and if there's changing interest rates, how will that impact in the future? So that was kind of where I was trying to reverse engineer it, and that was
yeah,
where we came kind of stuck a
well,
little bit.
it's a great question. So, I mean, some of the projects we're working on. Throw out one that that you know a little bit about that you want to speak about, and we'll pick apart the price points.
Okay, let's talk about, we talk about Chesterfield a lot, don't we? What's the one we got in there? Is it Wright City? No, what about Wright City? Which one is in there?
Well, Rice City, we're not doing any of the vertical. So, Chesterfield, we're doing vertical. Old Willow, we're doing vertical. Hillcrest.
Let's look at Old Willow then. Why don't we look at that one? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a newer project. So Old Willow, for example, and I should do a screen share. We should actually do that next time. Do like a screen share so people can see realistically what the numbers look like and everything. But Old Willow, those are all single family homes. Okay. Everything that's selling around us is selling in the sevens. Okay. 700,000, 800,000. It's in a great area. So you're in Lake St. Louis, Missouri. I'm sorry, I can't really think of a lot of things about Lake St. Louis. It's just really pretty over there. Besides, Nelly grew up there, I guess, the rapper.
So how far is that
For
from
me,
the project? Yeah.
less than 30 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, so not far at all. So 30 minutes from us. But Lake St. Louis, great area. But all the comps are showing, even whenever we have the finance companies and the banks looking it up, they're like, well, we're seeing between 700 maybe to 850. Well, our starting price on our homes, I think, is 875 starting price. Why can we do that? And we kind of gave, the reasons why we're going to be where we're at. But if you look at all the rest of the homes, and I don't want to throw any other home builders under the bus, but there's some that are a lot less quality. They're pulling the comps off of these lot less quality with two-car garages, with smaller lot widths, and you got to base it off a lot of different factors. So ours will be a sidecar entry. It'll be three-car, garage. Plus, it's just going to be a lot higher quality product.
Got it. Well, let's unpack that a little bit. And let's say you get a situation where you're talking to the bank, you're negotiating something with the bank, you're trying to get some funding, and they're using their underwriting to pull comps. Do these banks and is your relationship strong enough to go back and fight your case for that and kind of identify, look, well, these actually there's some nuances to these properties, and you've got to compare apples to apples. Does that happen, or are they closed off to that?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Like we spent so much time arguing with the PE firm that we work with. They're good at what they do. Don't get me wrong, but like Kyle, we're just not seeing the comps that you guys are, reflecting. Like we understand that, but here's the thing: you guys are seeing it from I forget where they're from. I think Texas. They're seeing it from their eyes of Texas, what goes on in Texas, and they do a lot in Florida, so they're doing some more Florida stuff. But unless you understand, the different markets like the Missouri market or Florida markets or Michigan, like we're moving into, it's hard to depict why we can charge that price and we know we can sell it. So what we end up having to do is move that one over to a local bank, which was Lindell, and they understand the local market. They
Yeah,
understand
they
why.
got boots on the ground, right?
Yeah, they got boots on the ground. They're a big bank here locally, and I know the owner of the bank. Nice, very nice guy, Leon, and we built that relationship, so they don't mind financing and stuff like that. That's why I say local banks are a gold mine for you. Build relationships with them, and you'll be golden. So, and
Yeah,
always
and a
treat
lot
them.
of these are generational, right? A lot of these smaller banks, the ownership can be generational. So if you're from that town and you've
Absolutely. And you'll never get anywhere, and I'm not gonna throw out too many names, but you guys know all the big banks like Chase and Bank of America and all them. You'll never get anywhere with financing, like, big projects like this with them. If you're a developer and you have, God bless, it's super hard to get that done. You have to be, in certain figures, and most time that is only, like, national builders that can do anything with them. And honestly, you're not gonna get the rates, and you're not gonna get the terms that you most of the time would prefer. And even I think it was Lombardo, they pulled most of their finances from Chase Home or Chase Bank back in the day and moved it to a local bank because they're just getting much better rate and terms, and they're approving the projects. If you can't get it approved, doesn't matter what you got going on.
no, exactly. What about some of these private lenders then? My buddy used to work for Builders Capital, for example. I don't know if you've heard of them. Private fund, and they used to do a lot with home builders all over the US.
I still do a lot. I haven't done any deals with them personally, but I've spoken with them.
Are they more short-term capital of these guys, or do they do some longer products?
But when you say short term, 30 months is probably still average for them, or 24, and then they add on their extensions, which is fine. But you're paying a half a point to a point for every add on they do. So if your
So where would
development's not
somebody
done,
use a company like that versus your regional bank, or your local bank? What would be the reason for that?
huge differences. So let's go off of some basic numbers. Let's go with Old Willow, okay? And
Yeah.
right now, it's with us building the homes. We're around. Let's just call it $9 million. It's slightly over that, but it's $9 million.
So how many lots? Let's because we were going to unpack that deal with me. How many lots is on that project?
14.
14 lots. Okay.
Bought the land for 1.275, I think, or 1.25. Either or, 1.275. But
Okay.
$9 million is what we're spending on the land or on the total development, building
Okay.
homes,
Well, let's go back one step.
horizontal.
Once you get the entitlements done, what do you think the land's going to be worth there from the acquisition of 1.4? What's going to increase be once you get the entitlements approved on it?
Well, you can turn around and sell it. That's already approved, just so you know, we're already in horizontal development.
The 1.4 is that acquisition of the land is what I'm trying to get at,
The
just so people can see
1.275,
the economics of it.
you're talking about the 1.275?
Yeah, 1.275. Sorry.
Yeah, that's for just the land only. So it's fully entitled at that price. That's where we're at on with full entitlements, everything. So I just call it the cost of the land. We can turn around and sell it. It'd probably be a quick flip for right around $2 million. So you make, a quick 500,000, and you might be able to sell for more. Don't get me wrong. Just depends on what the product, but it's only 14 lots. So if you can make $500 to $800,000 off of 14 lots. That's a great profit margin. If you're a flipper of, land contracts like that, and that's not necessarily a flipper because a flipper is usually someone that just buys it and almost sells it within 30 days.
Yeah,
The
just put an
entitlement
accent
process,
on top. Yeah,
yeah, it's going
yeah.
to take you a year to get it entitled, but it's flipping in the horizontal development, I guess, arena, they
Well, I
say.
think what's good about that is people can see that there's a lot of different ways along that life cycle from raw land to the finish, but to make money in that. So you can get pulled away, and you found a really good way to find your niche, and you know where you operate. I think that's good to for people to understand that, right?
Yep.
So you're getting in at the raw land right at the start, directly with the owner of the land. You're getting it under contract. You're doing the entitlements yourself, increasing the value, and then you're moving, which is pre-sold, obviously, which takes a lot of risk out. Then you're moving into the development phase. You're breaking ground. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so back to your original question, so I don't veer off too far because I was trying to answer that. But the $9 million cost. Okay, so what's the difference between using like a P firm or outside company versus a local bank? So off the $9 million, a local bank like Lindell, they'll charge me between a half of a point to 1 point. So let's say they charge 1 point. It's only $9,000. They only charged me a half point on here, so I think I only paid like 4,500, maybe 5 grand
talking about origination, right?
for the origination.
Yeah.
Okay. P firm is on average, and I shouldn't just say P, hedge fund, any of those family offices, any of those bigger companies, they're going to charge right around 2.5%. So 2.5%, I've already spent $225,000 if there is no broker on that deal. If there's a broker, I'm over 3%. I'm probably over $300,000, give or take, just off the rip. So that's the difference on the initial front part. Now, interest rates, Lindell and all those local banks, they're usually just prime plus one. So right now I'm at like 7.25, I think, or 7.75, whatever prime plus one is right now. But and that stays locked in. It doesn't, float or anything else like that. When you're using like a bigger hedge fund or something like that, you're anywhere between, you can get 9%. I have a few of those that are locked in there, but most time it's closer to that 11, 12, 13, 14%. So while they're non-recourse, the P hedge fund kind of loans, they do usually have bad boy carve outs, and the local bank might have you personally guarantee it. So there is more risk, but you associate that risk. Is it worth that lot less cost? Is that project something you know you're going to do no matter what? Is it a high risk project? Like we're trying a few one offs. I think I told you about like Fenton. That would probably have been a good one to bring in like a P firm or hedge fund. It's just a higher risk project, but I think it's going to sell great, honestly, because it's like a C plus area and it's starting to develop into like more of a B area. So over the next 2 to 5 years, I think it's going to be prime. While we're selling homes, it's going to be amazing. But
Yeah.
that's
So
the real
you're
crucial
ahead of the
difference.
curve. Yeah.
Sorry.
You're seeing the growth in that area.
Oh, absolutely.
What's driving that area then? Is new businesses coming in, population growth? What do you think is going to shift that area and change it?
Well, yeah, you're seeing a lot of retail going in there. So they've built some big strip centers all the way down through there. A lot of retail's going in there, and we're not losing much retail here in Missouri. I know, I forgot who it was. There's a big company that just closed down. They didn't file bankruptcy or anything, but they just closed all whatever it was 1,000 stores they had. And there's a lot of companies, that are condensing. So you got Starbucks and a bunch of other major guys that are condensing. They're dropping 300, 500 stores at a time. That area that's not happening. They're still growing, by people, which usually it's the areas that still have quite a bit of land like Fenton that are starting to be really nice. Like they redeveloped the main hub. So you might want to call it like town center. They redeveloped it all. So it's like brand new. It's really pretty.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Awesome. So okay, so
So,
we'll just go back to the deal. We're in at 9 million. No, so your exit is 9. Is that what you're saying on that project
well, that's my cost, vertical and horizontal. So that's my cost.
for the 14?
Yep. So, and I'll pull it up. So I'm speaking to you truthfully about exactly what's going on. But so our all-in cost on the land was 1.275. Okay. We've added in a little bit of administrative costs, so it's not really too much, but we've added in a little bit. So we got a couple $100,000 there. But our total lot horizontal development cost is 2.466. So not too bad. But when you go into building the homes, each home, and this will probably change a little bit, but we're going to add on additional $473,200, give or take. So total building cost with the land all included is $9,091,000 for the 14 homes, and we're expecting to sell those at a base price of $865, which with the base price of $865 with the options, we're probably going to be well into the nines. People always want the options, so 950 is probably going to be about average there.
Okay, just for people that don't understand, options is upgrades in the home, specific design features that you can upsell.
Yeah, you might want to change out your doors or windows or flooring, cabinets. Everybody always wants the fancier stuff until you see your budget, and you got to keep yourself within budget
Yeah,
too. You know, how it goes, especially if you have
yeah.
your wife with you.
We're looking at a place down in Mexico. We just put an offer
Yeah.
on it, and we've requested from the developer a tub. They don't have bars, showers, and so we requested a few extras. So yeah,
No, yeah, so that's the general numbers. Now, that sales price we think's on the low to medium end. We actually think we'll sell for quite a bit more. I think we'll be probably averaging a little over 1,000,000, but our numbers are solid. We've got all our bids back, and you have to run all these numbers. You got to make sure you get quality bids from quality people because if you think you're going to do this, like our timing, I think is less than a year to build
so
all
this
these
is
out.
that quick of a project.
It will be. So,
Yeah.
I think we have it built in for 5 quarters. So that includes horizontal construction. So that is a little over a year and a quarter, but that's to sell all of them. Now, these are not, just spec homes, they are spec homes. They're not just cookie cutters, so we're not just building one off. So people will be able to come in and not customize them fully, but they'll be able to pick out all the cabinets, flooring, everything they want to put into it, all the options, maybe add in that extra office or bedroom, change how the layout is slightly, but most of the plans are already in place. And there will be, I think, 4 or 5 different floor plans to pick from at this location. And, they'll all be 3-car garage side entry.
Okay. So the X is going to be somewhere between 12 and 14, depending obviously where you land, right? Million.
Exit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, our total exit profit.
Yeah. Well, let's go low end first. Like, what's your absolute lowest you want to get out of this project at?
Well, let's say they all sold for base price. I know we changed this up a little bit, but times, let's see.
So just under 9, right? And then anywhere up to a million. So
Yeah, you're pretty much spot on. So 12,121, that would be on our low end, which, I think we'll be closer to that 13.8, 14,000,000.
yeah. Well, I mean,
And,
look, that's a good year's work. Phil. That's a good year's work. So
well, and it's only one project,
yeah.
so, like, if you have enough projects going in different areas and they're quality projects, like we say all the time, pick projects that meet your buy box, and that's in any industry. So our buy box, and I think our number one thing. What's our number one thing we always look for?
It's location, right? So
Location, but
school
five-star
districts,
schools.
yeah.
Yeah, school
Population
district.
growth and school districts. Yeah, school districts probably the big one, isn't it, for the families?
Well, it's our first thing we really look at here personally. And don't get me wrong, that's changing slightly because there's a lot of areas that are starting to grow rapidly, headed down Highway 70 West corridor, like Wright City. I would have never picked that, but I don't have the UMR reports that Fisher Homes had back in the day, and I understand why they're headed there because there is so much growth. And I don't support these data centers, but there's so much of that going on right now, and it's growing all the way down through there. Yep.
That's probably a podcast on its own, but I got deep a couple of days back. I went down a rabbit hole. And oh yeah. My wife and I. Funny you mentioned that. We went really deep, and it's crazy. Some of the stories, people are moving out of their homes because of it. All the water contamination and everything going on with it.
Well, and that's the thing. So all I've ever heard on it was all negative, and then I went and met with one of my main engineers, and I don't want to mention his name right here, but he's one of my main guys, and he's talking about how he's the one that's helped get a lot of these projects approved here locally. I'm like, okay, well, let me understand why. But they use so much water, and I don't, understand all the reasons why. Obviously, they got to keep everything cooled, in their water cooled equipment. But what's the benefit? Obviously, all this AI is coming in, which I believe is good in certain ways. But do I believe that it's the end all be all? By no means. I think there's a great purpose for AI, but it just depends on how far we let it go. But to bring data centers in right next to where you live, I think there's plenty of other areas to put them, like out in the middle of the country and nowhere. You could develop those areas and they would expand tremendously, I'm sure. But to bring them into the bigger, closer to the cities, it's not something I support, but I don't have enough details about data centers to really make an educated decision on that.
Yeah, well, it's definitely opened my eyes to look a little deeper into it because I heard the hot side of it, the upside potential. Actually, I spoke to one of my guys who works for a private equity firm. He's an underwriter for them years back, and he was talking about buying a lot of these data centers or land to build data centers in like Leon in Mexico and feeding into the US. So that was kind of his thesis. But watching what was going on, I think there's about 1,200 across the US now and growing, right? I think 30 to 50% are owned by your big guys. You're talking your Facebooks, your Amazons, and they're under shell companies as well, right? They're not directly saying that they're out there buying it, but they're putting in billions to it. So it's
Well, that's exactly what the engineer had told me. He said he's got one he's doing with Facebook, and he's got one he's doing with Google, and one with Amazon, all here locally. Yeah. I'm like, "Huh, it's interesting." So, it's definitely we probably need to get our heads out of the sand and start looking at what all is going on there. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that do understand that a little bit more,
yeah.
but and I've researched it. It's just trying to actually understand a little bit more in depth of the consequences of putting those in. So,
So let's use that as a topic then. Let's say you're looking at a project
yep.
and you do some deeper research and you see that there's other approvals like a data center, would that steer you, move you away from the project? And what, in terms of deciding, okay, I don't want to build here because that's too close to that potential.
Well, from the data we're getting back as right now, it's not affecting sales. So, while so many people oppose it, they don't want it going in where they live currently. But when houses are built close to it, it hasn't necessarily changed anybody's opinion on moving there. So, I can't negatively say that's affected the sales. And what it does do, it seems like it's bringing in more, money into that area. So there's more development going on. So there are some positives that I'm seeing off of it, but home sales, I don't think that's actually decreased on new homes being built around that area.
Yeah, well, I
You know,
think it's too early as well, isn't it? Maybe that, this conversation is different in 5 years. Maybe that is a big factor on new home
well,
sales.
and it could be because they keep talking about the water shortages. And I forgot who it was like Economic Ninja or someone on YouTube that was showing like one of the big rivers. Man, I forgot the name of the river, but it was completely dry, completely dry. He was just standing in the river. And we've had that here recently. Like Missouri River was pretty bone dry for a while there. And luckily it's rained a ton, the last month or so. So we don't have that issue at all anymore. It's actually pretty high. But you could have walked through the Missouri River, which is, kind of rare. And I'm not saying that has anything to do with data centers. That's, the weather and everything else and all the chaos going on in the world. Like it's kind of a crazy world we got right now. And but there's so much, and the thing I tell everybody, there's so much fear going on with people. It's going to be one of the best times. I'm not saying life's all about money, but one of the best times to make yourself successful and a lot wealthier if that's something you're looking to do.
Well, a lot of people are going to freeze, aren't they? And they're going to, they're going to procrastinate. And we talked about this on the last podcast, didn't we, about procrastination and taking action and failing forward. And imperfect action is always going to win, isn't it? Over, doing nothing about it. So there's a cost of inaction, basically.
Oh, it's the biggest cost. And there's only one thing I really personally that I've ever regret. And, that was just with my motocross career, where I didn't push it far enough, long enough, but it's from severe injuries, I've broken so many things. So I'm pushing on that a little bit, but not going
You
to
should
jump into that
bike
too
out
much.
and rode the Missouri River while you had a chance. Good old days.
There's not enough jumps in there, but yeah, flat tracking it, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, to go. So let's go back to the project then. So that's if somebody's thinking about doing development for themselves, for example. Obviously, I don't think they'd be jumping straight into a 14 lot, which is not big at all, for somebody like you. But if somebody's thinking about starting development, what do you see? Let's start firstly, natural progression for somebody to get into it. Is it typically people that come from a background builders that work and they do their own side projects, or do you get somebody that's never been in? Have you seen anyone that's got zero experience and decides to buy some land and develop a property, whether it's their dream home or as an investment? What are you seeing in that?
I mean, I would hope they have some kind of experience because, without some kind of experience, it's a great opportunity to get ripped off. Or, like I think I mentioned this to you earlier, or maybe it was the IT guy. I was just talking about some of the homes I lost big money on, just not setting it up correctly. Or one of the main things I always say is never, never purchase a piece of land before you have all the entitlements in place. Never. It doesn't matter what the piece of land is or how great you think it is, unless you just have a ton of money that you're sitting on that you need, to disperse somewhere, unless you have the entitlements, depends on city council. They could, change, even if it's approved for apartments and you think you're going to build 300 apartments, it doesn't mean that's going to be reapproved. They could change their mind. They could change what their jurisdictions allow, the zoning, everything else. So that's probably first and foremost. As for people that, I would say I'm one of the rare people on that. And not saying I'm any better, but I didn't have much experience in this industry. Mine was, I started out in retail development, but I didn't have retail development. I was big in real estate, but it was mainly just fix and flips or buying stuff at the auction. And that's where I started. But I really wasn't even good at construction. I'm not saying I was, but I hired the right people, even my partner back in the day in 2009, Kent Shore, he was good at construction. So luckily I had his guidance, and people around me that, just were great people to work with. So having people that at least help guide you a little bit is huge. But when you're going into development, it's a different realm and it's the same amount of work. I know it sounds crazy, but to develop 500 lots as it is to develop one or two, same amount of work. Now the vertical obviously you got to add on, but to actually get the horizontal part of it developed, same amount of work, and I'm just talking about the entitlements and the approval process. Same timing, same amount of work, a little bit different design and stuff like that. But, there's not much difference on the timing. If it's going to take you 18 months to get it all entitled, it's going to do that, whether it's 500 lots or if it's 2 lots.
So the first piece of advice: don't buy land unless it's entitled. Now that's different to controlling the land. Just so people know, getting it under contract and having the ability to go through that entitlement process, that's key. You control the asset, you're in control of it, but you've not fully committed. There's some earnest money that you got to put down for sure, some costs to get that done, which are minimal, and then you've got a way to back out of it. So if you can't build what you want to build. Well, that's good advice.
Everybody, I actually great conversation to bring up to you, or great topic. Like, if you don't know what an option contract is, it's something you want to definitely look into. So, for every time I do development, you could put it on a regular, MLS, contract or local realtor contract, but if it's better to have it on an option agreement. So where, in ChatGPT and all these other programs, Claude, they could create it for you nowadays and just have an attorney overlook it for you. But put that in place. It gives me usually anywhere between 9 months to 18 months where I could do all my due diligence without coming up with too much hard money. And usually the first 9 months, I have $0 that's hard. Now, that doesn't mean I don't spend money because during the whole process, I've already engaged my engineers. I'm doing my phase one, doing all my surveys, everything else. So there is, $10,000, $15,000 that will accrue outside of the deposit, but the deposit is refundable. So if I put up 10, 20, 100,000, I could get that money back as long as I cancel within the 9 months. The only reason why I'd cancel is if the project is not viable. I can't get it approved, or the city said, hey, we can do 160 lots, but now we're down to like 70. It might not be viable financially.
Yeah, you got to rework your numbers, make sure it pencils right at
Yeah,
that point
absolutely. Yep.
before you go hard.
Yep. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So,
And then just
eh,
quickly, just go into that one. What's the typical time frame from when you decide, okay, this project's a go, the money can go, you remove all contingencies to the point of closing? What's the typical time frame on that final part?
see, that's almost impossible to state as well, just because every jurisdiction is so different. So, let's say we feel comfortable with the project. We got a thumbs up from city council. We already had a meeting, and see, we go above and beyond. We do things that we know are going to have to happen. So we want to make sure, like, let's say you live around me, Geo. We want to have a city meeting with all of the local residents, and if we're around a lot of commercial buildings, all the commercial people, built businesses, to make sure what are their concerns, what don't they like about our subdivision, what do they like, what do they want to see? So we address all those issues before we get to the site development plans or site improvement plans where, issues could come up. So we address all that while we're in zoning.
And what are some of the typical things that you see that repeat, like that come up from local residents?
Well, it depends. I mean, there's a million things that could come up. So people saying, they don't like your product. Okay, well, we could address that. That's a rare one, but we had someone do that, but it was only because one of our renderings was mainly just different shades of gray. So make sure your architect makes it look pristine. And if they don't, find someone that does renderings and make it look amazing so they can actually tell what it looks like. But outside of that, how does the water flow? So, okay, you guys are about ready to grade off this 12 acres. Well, all that water that was absorbing in the ground and is all running off to, let's call it the northwest side, or north, what is it on Bates? Sorry. It's actually the southwest side of the project. Now it's just going to be running right off to the south. It's going to be hitting all those homes right to the south. So where's that water going to go? How's that going to affect their retaining wall they have in place? How's that going to affect their houses? How's that going to affect their sump pumps that they have in their basement? Just all that extra water. So they look at that. Also, what kind of noise are we going to make in? Are we going to be disturbing animals? How many trees are we removing? How does it affect traffic in the area? There's a lot of things that come up. So with all those issues that people start pointing out, you want to address those ahead of time. So once you get city council, you're standing up there and your engineer went up there and did his whole pitch, because that's what it is. It's a pitch of why we're great and, why you should allow, KB Capstone and Blue Onyx and all that stuff to develop, build homes over there, or whoever we're working with. So we're pitching on ourselves, and they come back and they catch you off guard. You don't want to be up there, you want to have all your ducks in a row. So, and not saying that doesn't happen, but we got pretty good speakers, and most of us have been in this industry long enough that there's not much you could say that really throws us off. Besides, we did have one of the main city, I think it was the Board of Aldermen. He's like, well, side yard setbacks are 10 feet. Why can you guys not do 10 feet? Well, we can't do 10 feet because he's like, well, fire code, because a house just cut. He was trying to give us an example of a house that just caught on fire the other day. Yeah, that's a great point. Their side yard setbacks were like 6 or 7 feet, whatever they were. I think they were 6. Well, that house that caught on fire caught the house on fire that was next to it. So not only did one house burn down, 2 houses burned down, or at least caught on fire. And while we don't ever want that to hurt anybody, there's no proof showing that separating it by 10 feet changes it more than it does 7 feet. And don't get me wrong, like logic makes you say, well, obviously 3 more feet on each side is going to help out. That extra 6 feet you got to be from the side yard setback is going to help, but it depends on the type of material you build the house out of.
Right.
There's a lot of different variables there as well, and the
Yeah,
quality
the
of the
wind is
electrical.
going left and the fire's going left. It's getting you at 6 feet or 10 feet, isn't it? It's going in that
Well,
direction.
I'm just going to tell you from development, I've seen us light a fire over 500 yards from where another fire lit, and it was just because of the type of the dirt that I don't know how it transfers through some of the dirt, but here in Missouri, there are certain dirts that the fire transfers through, and I would never believed you if you told me that 500 yards away that it caught on fire, but I watched it happen. So, and not saying it could have been done differently or something, blew over there or whatever, but it happened numerous times, so it wasn't like a one-off incident. So,
Yeah, so I suppose if and let's just so people understand. Let's say the city make you change that, right? That's going to affect potentially the number of lots you can build, right? Because you've got to do it in a smaller space, right?
absolutely. I think we overcame it pretty smoothly. So we told them, hey, listen, we understand that 10, this is the only variance we're asking for. So in exchange for you giving us instead of 6 yard, we're okay to do 7 yards. So that gives you seven from each side. So you'll have 14 feet between homes, which I think still a little dense. But for this one project, it's what's kind of required. We'll build it out of different materials. We'll also keep all the specifications in place to make sure that, we limit that. And, we keep enough trees in place that kind of limit that as well. But by doing a PUD, we could do all this and we could keep more density. Also, all the water issues you guys are having from where MoDOT, which is the city roadways, put in place and it caused all these water issues, we'll take that water and we'll store it on one of our retention ponds. So we gave them a bunch of things that they were looking at this over here, and we're trying to get them to look at this over here to try to make up for that side yard setback that we're trying to do, where we're trying to add more value, where it helps all the residents that are right behind us, which is hundreds of homes. Because right now
Yeah.
they're having flash floods that almost coming in their basements, and
Wow.
we could fix that. And here's how we're going to do that.
Right. Right. Yeah. Just you're coming up with solutions, aren't you? You want to find the solutions and move forward with it.
It's
Well,
all
look,
you
I think
are.
one of the things we get close to time now, I think, but to wrap it up, let me because I've always wanted to develop. It's something I see myself doing in the future, should I say? Right. I've been in real estate in various different capacities, from private equity, capital raising, commercial real estate brokerage, investment sales. Obviously, I started doing construction, right? So that gave me a good sense of the whole thing. And what attracts me about it, from a personal point of view, is helping an area grow, changing the face of a community, right? And that's exciting. Obviously, it's a big thing to take on for me versus somebody that's never done it. I don't have any experience in developing it, but I'd be a lot more confident that I know the right people to ask. I mean, I've one phone call to you, and I've got some good knowledge base. But if somebody's thinking about starting to do a development, and let's just say total novice, what would you suggest they do? Build one home, do a rehab first? Like where would be a good place for somebody to start? Because you don't just go out and develop a 300-unit apartment building or a mixed use thing day one, do you? Typically heard.
I mean, there's people out there that are going to tell you to go do that, like, Grant Cardone and stuff like that. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. It's all about mindset. It really is. So, but people put fear in themselves. And like, I've talked to you about this numerous times. Like, I pray on everything, leave it all to Jesus. And, like, don't get me wrong. That's not their end all be all on everything. But in my world, it feels like it is. But you still have to have, the financials in place and everything else. My recommendation though, let's say you're brand new to it, you've got some building experience like yourself. I probably would go in something with around 10 units. You know, if you can find someone with 5, fine. If you find someone with 15, great. But is it financially feasible, first off? Can you do it? Can you pull it off? Do you got the money back in you? Do you gotta make monthly payments? There's a lot of variables in there, and then make sure you get your financing in place. Like, financing's huge, and people always say if you got the right deal, financing will find you pretty much. Okay. No,
Yeah, well,
because
these banks gonna, how are these banks gonna look at somebody with zero experience?
yeah.
Obviously, going to get a team in place. I mean, I get that they're going to hire the contractors, right? That's where they may not know how to manage these contractors. That's kind of a big part of the risk, I'm sure. But let's
Well,
say they do. But who's the bank going to look at?
exactly, and that's the thing, like, you might have to start off with a one-off. You might have to, and that might be your thing, and I've seen so many people do that, and they've become, great at what they can do. If you could financially afford 10, I would go that route just because you got a little bit of, things to work with, and your cost base is usually lower, and your time frame where you at least have something to work on stays expanded out for a year or more versus, you being done with this one house, and then you don't have no more houses to build, no more profits to make, and you got to be looking for your next project. But this is always my thought and my process is I would rather get, even 40%, but 50% of something versus 100% of nothing. And what I mean by, oh man, absolutely. Find people that are in that industry. Give up 50, give up 70, give up 80%. I know that does not sound fun.
It's a paid education, though. You're making money and you're getting the education, which is worth more in the future if you think the long game.
Oh, dude, or you could do it the Kylie Brown way. The other way is go out there, make all the mistakes, lose $100,000 plus on numerous properties, and figure out how to fix all it. That's the Kylie Brown way. I mean, like, there's one or the other. So I either give up and I still made money by giving up 50, 60, 70, 80%, or you can do it the hard way and not have a mentor or someone that's guiding you and helping you step by step. That's what you want. You really want that person in your life that can help guide you, because in the home building business, there's 5 million things you got to do. And I've hired the best people, but you know, it's taken me a little bit of time to make this happen. So it didn't happen overnight. And, I learned the hard way. So it is what it is. But, Gio, I greatly appreciate you being on, man. I think this is the end of our time for the day. I think we got some great subjects to speak about this next time. I think we should do a little bit of a screen share though, so we can show like some live features of things that are going on. Maybe in our next podcast.
Perfect. Yeah, appreciate you having me on, and look forward to the next time, sir.
Yeah, man. You got any final words before we let everyone go?
Yeah, just to wrap it up, I would say, think big picture
Yep.
and get the right people around you. It's a long term game. Every day's a school day. You can go out there, you can learn, and I think there's something to be said about building the right relationships in any business. We talked about this last time on business acquisition. It's not about hitting the home run, is it, on the first go round? So
No, you don't have to hit a home run, but you can be in a position where, and we don't look for home runs. I'm with you there. That's the last remark I'll make. We look a lot of times for those 40 unit subdivisions. That's like spot on for us because it's about the perfect amount of homes to build where we can always sell them out within a reasonable amount of time. But yeah, thanks again, Gio. God bless everyone. Thanks for your time. Thank you, Lord Jesus Christ, our Savior. And we'll chat with everyone next week. God bless.